Help for moms and dads of school-age kids.
I tell parents, you're like a training wheel on a bike. Your job isn't to make the bike move. Your job is to keep the bike upright.
Those of us who are the true educators, we really want to be given the opportunity to educate the whole child.
We can get free college degrees based on all of the opportunities that are out here and available to our students.
Oftentimes, as parents, I think we want to protect our kids, but I think one of the greatest gifts we can give them is allow them to experience adversity.
Here are your hosts, David and Danita Bailey.
Well, welcome to School Days, Help for Moms and Dads of School-Aged Kids. I'm Danita Bailey.
And I'm David Bailey.
As the saying goes, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Summer vacation has begun. Yay! And many parents of school-aged kids are trying to figure out how to balance screen time and maybe, just maybe, get their kids to read and even learn this summer. So this is kind of a hectic time for David and me, and probably a lot of you out there. We both work for ourselves, so we're at home a lot and at our office, and we're having to figure out creative ways to keep our kids occupied that don't include watching TV all day. So what did you do over summer breaks when you were younger?
Not much. I mean, I did sports. I did competitive swimming. I didn't do a lot of summer soccer, but I just did a lot of hanging out earlier. And then when I really, had my goals set on where I wanted to go to college, I made some sacrifices and went to summer school to get ahead, particularly in mathematics. I took Algebra 1 between 8th and 9th grade. And then in high school is where I really got involved in academics. I was involved in some pre-college programs and spent my days going to the University of Pittsburgh and another college near me called Duquesne University. And I was in class all day long, learning and getting ahead. And that's really where I could really learn how to write and, really get stronger heading into the next school year.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
I was really loafing.
What were you doing, baby? Well, actually, I know what you were doing.
Good gravy.
Hey, guys, people out there listening. My wife, she loves to clean. And what she would do is she would get a cleaning cart. Literally. Well, how are you, 12, 13?
Yeah.
Yeah. And walk around every day and clean the house. And then we wonder why our first year was so hard of marriage.
Well, I mean...
Yeah. I'm coming from a lady who used to clean with a cart all day long to me, and, I wasn't quite that tidy. So.
Well, I had to do something to keep myself busy. But I did other things. I mean, I didn't just clean all the time, which I don't know why you have a problem with that. I mean, I wish our kids would clean the house all day long.
But at 13?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
You can hate on that all you want. But no, I mean, I went to the occasional camp. I was super, am still actually shy, but I was really shy. And so I went to a couple of camps, but those didn't exactly work out. And I was mostly just watching TV. And yes, I was cleaning. And swimming. I don't remember really learning or doing any reading at all in the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
So you made me look like a real slacker.
Oh, well,
Taking algebra in the summertime?
Well, I was applying I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, so I had to get on the advanced math track, and so that's why I did it. And I literally walked to school both ways in the summertime, and it was about a good 6 or 7 miles away. So we only had one car, and my dad was at work. So it was sacrifice. I wasn't messing around. I was on a mission. Weren't. Yeah, and I had my paper route too. I sound kind of nerdy, don't I? Yeah. Don't you laugh at me. Don't you laugh at me.
Relate.
Hey, you know what? Hey, but it worked. Hey, that was $30 a week. That was good money back then. And then Christmas time, I would clean up. Anyway, you laughing kind of hard, baby. You laugh a little too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I love you though.
No, thank you, baby.
Well. Before we go any further and get any more off track here, I do want to say that it does take a village. So if you hear a great parenting tip or nugget of advice, share it with your parent friends. Facebook it, Instagram it, tweet it, link it in, and add the hashtag School Days Show and hashtag I am School Days. So Dave, who's with us today?
All right. So joining us on the phone, this is our first phone guest from Baltimore, Maryland, is Aaron Phillip Dworkin, formerly of the After School National Summer Learning Association, and just came on as the new Chief Executive Officer of the National Summer Learning Association.
It's the second day.
Yes, second. Yeah, this is day 2. So welcome. We're really glad you're here. Aaron has been deeply committed to closing educational and opportunity gaps for young people through high-quality out-of-school time programs for 2 decades. Aaron joins the National Summer Learning Academy, having most recently served as president of the After School All-Stars National Network, a nonprofit organization providing free after-school and summer programs to 90,000 low-income students in over 450 Title I schools in 20 major cities across the United States. He's a frequent presenter at national education conferences, a graduate of Tufts University, a former Coro Fellow in Public Affairs, and holds a master's degree from Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs and Harvard University Graduate School of Education. He is a member of the 2019 class of leadership, Greater Washington, and serves on the National Board of Directors of the American Camp Association. So we're really glad you're here, Aaron, and looking forward to hearing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
And also joining us in the studio is Julie Miller. And Julie is the Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction for Irving ISD, where she served in various positions for 22 years. Prior to this role, she served as Executive Director of PK5 schools. She was a principal at 3 schools, an assistant principal and teacher, and a dean of students. Ms. Miller earned both a bachelor's and master's degree in education from the University of North Texas, where she was a Meadows Scholar graduate, and she continued her studies at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, and earned a master's degree in administration. So thanks for joining us in the studio, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we want to ask you, Aaron, tell us what the National Summer Learning Association is.
Great. So thanks again for having us. And so the National Summer Learning Association is the leading national organization focused on closing achievement and opportunity gaps across the country for kids, especially during the summer. And we know that there are just so many kids who do have resources, are very fortunate in the summer to keep their learning going and experiencing wonderful opportunities, learning about STEM and literacy and health and academic support. And then there are millions of kids who do not have that same opportunity. Mm-hmm. And in the summer, they are left alone. They are not put in programs. They don't know about them. They don't have the resources, and they actually fall behind. And there's research now we've celebrated our 25th year, so there's a lot of research out there that shows something called the summer slide and summer learning loss, where kids can end up 2 to 3 months behind when they show back up in school in September because they just haven't been able to exercise their minds the same way as their peers are. So we're focused on highlighting this issue and this problem and offering solutions and advocating and supporting folks on the ground who are trying to create new programs and create more spots for these kids and their families. And so that's a big thing. We celebrate the best programs out there that we can, and we try to have them held up as a model. And we advocate with policymakers at school districts and mayors and governors to make sure that they put more funding into this. And we communicate out to the field what are the best practices and the best ways to start programs and to keep elevating them and making sure that they do more for kids.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your work. This is an issue that we need to put more focus on, and I'm so great that you guys are doing some training and helping us have the best programs out there for our students. So, Julie, what are your responsibilities as Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction?
What do you do?
That's a really great question because I've had the job for a month, so I'm still learning myself. But, I mean, the state gives us a list of all the standards that students must master by the time they finish each course, pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. Every single class has a list of things students should learn. They just give us a long list. We have to take that list, put it in some sort of order, create a course that addresses all the learning standards in the list, align all the resources that we have available to us to those courses, and then it's curriculum. That's the curriculum side. But in my department, it's also and instruction. So when we also work on what are the best practices that would allow the best tools that we can give to teachers to ensure that they can teach this written curriculum in a way that is effective for students. And we keep all of that aligned and adjusted for over 180 or so courses, not including all of our band, choir, orchestra, all the fine arts.
And you're in charge of all that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's what I say.
Yes.
So both of you, tell us, what impact does summer learning loss have on classrooms once they resume in the fall? Either one of you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm in Irving ISD, as you said earlier. The majority of our students are low-income students without the resources that were mentioned already previously. So our children are very capable learners, but they come to school from the outset behind. Linguistic. Their language isn't as well developed. And many of our kids, English is not their first language, and school is a very language-oriented situation. So they come without those initial resources, and they make great progress all year long, and almost catch up to their more resourced peers. And then we go home for the summer, and they fall back 2 or 3 more months. And then when they come back, they're they're further behind, and then they make really great progress, but they don't catch up quite enough, and then they go home for the next summer. And so every summer that they go home and lose a month or 2 of learning, they come back just a little bit further and further behind. And the effect can be devastating if we don't do something to support them, because again, their capacity to learn is equal to any child anywhere.
Absolutely.
And their right to learn is equal to any child anywhere. So it's just a matter of making sure that we apply our resources or help parents know where those resources are to ensure that loss doesn't occur.
Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Well, I agree with what Julie was saying. I'd also say that not only are we seeing that there's a drop-off in the skills but in the summer months, almost, in the 3 months of reading or math skill loss, but that it's cumulative. It adds up over time.
Yeah.
So if you have this every summer, you can end up being 2 to 3 years behind your peers because they've had all this extra learning opportunity that you haven't. So it's not only what happens right now this summer as we are in the present moment, but also over time. But I will also say there's academic gaps that we're addressing, but also what we were talking about before is the opportunity gaps. In the summer is when kids get to go have these new experiences. Maybe you're hanging out at your grandmother's farm for the first time and you're helping out and learning about animals or planting, or maybe you're taking a trip with your family, or you get these experiences that kids who have more resources are getting. And that gives them a broader view. All of a sudden, what they're learning makes sense, and they can connect it. They've learned about careers. They've met mentors. They've had camp counselors who are in college who they look up to, who are talking to them about college every day over their summer. And so, hey, now you come back in 6th grade, and boy, I can't wait to do well in school because I want to go to college with my camp counselor who tells me it's so great. So there's all these other social-emotional learning benefits, academic benefits, opportunity gaps that we're closing. And also I just want to highlight the very immediate need that a summer program addresses around meals. And there's millions of kids who go hungry in the summer, who they're on the free and reduced lunch program every day at school being fed, and then that stops. And if they're not in a program, they might not eat. And so all these summer programs that we're lobbying to make sure have funding or advocating for, whether it's at a museum or whether it's at a library or Parks and Rec, they're not only helping the kids academically, but they're helping them be fed and having their basic needs met. So there's just so much that we're addressing. But if I may, I'll just say one other quick thing that I think matters, which is it's not only that we're trying to close gaps and have people, catch up, but we're also trying to help families and kids propel forward and improve. And when I think about this work, and David, you were talking about earlier all the things you did over the summer that really helped you improve your skills and not just like catch up, right? So
Right.
I think about I played high school basketball, and my coach always used to say, no one gets better during the season. The kids who show up next year that are stars, it's because they put in the work and the time over the summer.
Yeah.
That's when you improve.
Yeah.
And then you see those results during the season. I think that applies to what we're talking about with the kids we're trying to serve. That if they put in effort and join one of these amazing programs that we have all across our country and our communities, then you'll see the results during the school year.
Just as a really quick aside, my first, as many people know, my first experience teaching was in a Title I school, and I taught 8th grade math, and I'm coming in with a lot of assumptions about what students should know in 8th grade. And I'm teaching, and I remember this so clearly. I remember teaching, and it was some problem, and I said, what's 8 times 7? And mind you, this is 8th graders. It was crickets. They were looking at me like I was crazy. And I was thinking, how in the world could a student in 8th grade not know 8 times 7? And then to contrast it, I taught at another school, high-performing school, and I taught 4th graders there. And a lot of my 4th graders could have run circles around the 8th graders that I taught. These kids were just high flyers. I mean, we would do pre-assessments in August on what they were going to test for in April and May for the state exams, and they already scored in the hundreds in August before I even taught the stuff. So, and the parents, they really made an investment in their children. So, I've seen both worlds, and it really does make an impact when there's that support and when they don't have the support.
So, David, how much time, I know we've talked about this before, so in the fall when you start school, do you get to just start the new, 8th grade curriculum, or do you have to, is there any reteaching that is required because of summer learning loss?
Oh yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it's just trying to kick the summer rust off because they haven't been in that thinking mode necessarily, and just a lot of review. It's at least the first month
6 weeks,
is focusing on almost exclusively review, and then there's a lot of review we have to do throughout the year because they never really mastered it from the year prior. So depending upon what class I was in and what the content was, I had to do a lot of spiraling, which means basically going back and making sure that they got the foundation that they should have had the year prior just to be able to do the math we have to do this year on top of learning how to do it in a word problem context. So there's a lot of factors that are going in, and I had kids who just they were struggling, so I had to pull kids aside and work with them individually because I shouldn't hold the other kids back because they got it. So it's a very complicated dynamic in the classroom. You have kids that are soaring and kids that are kind of on level and kids that are really struggling, and we have to educate to all of them. And that's what the struggle of every Julie, I'm sure that's what your job is. How do you help to equip these teachers to do that? So anyway,
so you don't get to hit the ground running as a teacher in the fall. You have to reteach a lot of the stuff that they learned that they lost over the summer.
Yeah, especially in math. I know, especially in math.
Yeah. So Aaron and Julie, in your opinion, since summer learning loss is such an issue, does that make a good case for year-round school?
Go ahead, Aaron.
You want me? I will say no. It's not that we want year-round school. We want year-round learning. And I think there's something special about summer. I mean, there's summer school programs or school-based programs, but even those programs we want to see, take on a different feel of, not just punishment and not just more of the same, but that there are these great new experiences. And again, it does fall along class lines. I mean, when you hear about people discussing year-round school, they're not talking about it for middle and upper middle class kids. They're only talking about it for low-income kids.
Interesting.
And if you were a middle or upper middle class person, you wouldn't want your child to be sitting in a hot classroom for another 3 months. Now it's okay if they're being taught in a creative way, a hands-on way, a different way where they could build more relationships and have smaller classroom sizes and more hands-on experiences, and maybe less pressure and less punitive. So I think the name of our organization is Summer Learning Association. We don't want it to just be cupcakes and hanging and playing and doing nothing and hanging out, but we want everybody to be taking their advantage of their time. And you have more time, by the way. That's also the very big power of summer. It's not just a couple hours after school or what they have to get done in the school day. And there's so many requirements. Is that you have this flexibility to do to explore different areas that you might not have otherwise. So entrepreneurship, STEM, whether it's dance, art, music, all these amazing things, health, nature. So there's so many topics that you want to get to that we don't always have time during the school year, but during the summer, there's some real availability around that. And I just wanted to just put a plug that one of the places where you could see all this on display is July 8th through 13th. Our organization is helping coordinate something called National Summer Learning Week. There'll be almost 1,000 different events across the country where people are celebrating the importance and raising awareness of learning more over the summer and taking ownership of your own learning. And every day there'll be a different focus area, whether it's arts or STEM or college and career readiness, nutrition, wellness. And one last thing that I'll just mention to you is about workforce development and career exploration experience.
Yeah.
So many, if you think about summer internships, which everyone needs in this day and age in order to get a real job, that is a form of summer learning.
Oh, yeah,
You're learning.
absolutely.
So you have an intern sitting there with you right now trying
Yeah.
to learn how to
Hey,
produce a
Maya.
radio
Shout
show.
out to Maya.
Right? She
Hey,
might not have
hey,
been able
hey.
to do it during the school year. And so similarly, you look at all these kids, and that's a step. And if you look on Capitol Hill and all the people who work for their senators or congressmen, too often those internships are unpaid, and that is also very punitive and discriminatory in my opinion. But we want to make sure that people know that there's these summer learning work experiences that we need to make sure kids have the funding to do and that all kids have the chance to experience.
I'd like to, you mentioned earlier, like going down to grandma's house. I mean, there's so much that we learn outside of school. I mean, if school were the only place that we ever learned anything, then children would get to kindergarten as a completely blank canvas. But that's not what happens. But in order for kids to really excel in school, reading and speaking and listening, the language arts, that's so critical. And if you have very limited background, very limited experiences, we have students who going to the other side of the freeway in Irving has never happened to them.
Wow.
Because I mean, they don't see things, they don't do things. But so when you read a book, it's a completely foreign experience. So that also compounds the learning differences that can occur. So I really like what you said, Aaron, about it's not just about math facts and science facts, and there's so much of the world to learn. It's not just school learning that we should support children in their experiences with.
And thank you. I agree with you, and also that just to re-emphasize that point, there's also context. So if you're taking a standardized test in high school and it says, in Paris at the Louvre Museum, there's that, now maybe you could read it, but you don't even know what they're talking about, right? Because maybe you haven't been to a museum or you don't know about where Paris is. There's like all these other context clues that help kids, understand the world around them that, again, more experience in the summer can maybe, broaden their minds and horizons and then prepare them to connect dots.
So if I'm a mom that is of a middle class family, do I still, or a mom or dad? I'm just a mom. But do I need
are you
to
something else?
Right?
If you're a mom.
No, I'm saying those listening. I need to be concerned about summer learning loss? Does it just affect low-income kids, or does it affect all kids is my question.
Well, if you're not careful, it can affect all kids.
Right.
It's the middle-income, high-income students tend to have the ready at-hand resources. They have an at-home library. They have parents who talk to them about their books and take them to museums and take them on vacations to trips and have been further than across the freeway to the local supermarket. So that the learning happens. I grew up in a poor family, but my parents were very well educated. My parents were both educators, we had resources available to us, and they took us places and they talked to us about things. That's a great way to learn things. Your parents know all kinds of things. Just talk to your children about the experiences and what you're learning, and that makes a big difference. But those kinds of resources aren't always as readily available for lower income students, so the impact of summer learning can be more harsh.
Right.
I remember one of my students I coached. This was years ago now. Lived in a very affluent area of Dallas. Just on the flip side of it is, I think no matter where you are, that if you're not actively engaging with your children, no matter what your socioeconomic status, that it can be a challenge. I mean, this kid lived in a beautiful home, huge home, but he was by himself all the time because his parents were working all the time to accumulate the lifestyle that they were living. But he was not getting any support at all. I mean, I remember he was eating snackables for dinner. I mean,
What's a snackable? A Lunchable?
Lunchable.
Oh, okay.
Well, one of those bowls. Yeah.
Something unhealthy.
Yeah, and it just broke my heart. So I've seen it on both ends where so just the importance of having that support and encouragement is critical. No matter where you are, because sometimes work can get in the way, or just busyness of life, and you can look up and you're not getting the support you need. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, can I just also agree with you? I'll just say that you're totally right, and I think the concern and care and investment we put into our children is important no matter what economic class that they're born into. And just your examples are 100% right. And you could watch. There's a documentary called. There were two that came out at the same time a few years ago. One was called Waiting for Superman, that focused on the people's efforts to Jeffrey Canada to help low-income kids. And then in the private school world, there was a documentary called Race to Nowhere, which was all about the horrible pressures and the real deep problems that are being caused in really affluent communities when kids have maybe so many things, but all these other pressures, and they're not doing well either. So you see problems across economic class. But I think you're saying the solution, again, is about how many opportunities we can create for caring adults to spend time with children.
Yeah,
and to really, invest in them, know them, put them in an opportunity. You don't need a lot of money to do it. Like you were saying, if you could take the kids to your local library, that's a field trip. If you could take your kids to the public beach, to the public park, or the public, hiking trails, those are all new experiences. That don't cost very much, and I think that's one thing we want to make sure your listeners know, that you don't have to have $20,000 and send your kid to a camp for 10 weeks in Maine, but that there's things right there in Irving and right nearby and right in every community, great resources and opportunities to learn and expand their skills. And the other thing I'll also talk about that matters, that right now is a very hot button issue, but we know it forever, is the term SEL, social emotional learning. And that is that in today's workforce and going forward, your ability to interact with people different than you, to work in a team, to have leadership skills and management skills, all that stuff matters just as much as what you may be able to compute mathematically or how well you write an essay. If you can't work well in a team, you're not going to do well necessarily in a lot of jobs. And so a lot of those skills can be built through our summer learning programs that kids are entering, whether it's sports or these team or theater or arts and other things. So there's just so much to be able to learn and practice over the summer.
So let's talk about some more practical things that we can do with our kids. One of the things we've talked about in the past is, we go on vacations and sometimes just going to places that have historical significance. So you go to some historical landmarks and, see the battle of such and such happened here, and, just being very practical and engaging our kids. So are there some other things that we can do that maybe we do weekly or daily that would help in reducing summer learning loss?
So because of where I am, I tend to focus on the things that are absolutely and completely free.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So the cost associated is your time and your willingness to do so.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier, Aaron mentioned the libraries. The public library is a fantastic resource.
Yeah.
They have and I'm a book person. I'm a book fan. Like read is a big thing for me. Read and talk about what you've read. Reading is free. You can have online. You can read an online book. You can read a cereal box. I don't go to the museum. It's free, and there's reading all over the place. And the opportunity to talk about and model for your children that you are interested in the world around you. It's absolutely free to take them to the Dallas Museum of Art and just, I wouldn't go through the whole thing with very young children, but just go through and talk about what you see, what you think, how you feel about it, and let them see that you're reading the little cards on the side to learn more about what you're seeing. These are free things. Take them with you to the grocery store.
Absolutely.
Cook a meal with them. Ask them, the recipe calls for 2/3 of a cup of flour, but I'm only making half of the recipe. I wonder how much flour I should use.
Yes.
And these are free things. It's really, at the stoplight, how many green cars do you see?
Right.
It's helping kids understand that learning is all around them, and the experiences to broaden your horizons are they're everywhere, and we just have to open up their minds to that possibility as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the free stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I want to focus on is, things that we can do to just be intentional with our children. Just even, you talked about having a paper route.
Yeah.
So, entrepreneurialism, and, you say you want to get that Xbox. And so how many hours are you going to have to work? What are you going to have to charge for your lawn mowing service in order to get whatever it is that you're wanting to get? Help them with their math skills in that way.
And then teach them also to persist when things are hard. We are in an era where we have to save our children from the pain of failure, but failure is an opportunity to learn.
Yep.
So I'm sorry that you didn't earn enough for your Xbox. We'll put your money you earned this summer in the bank, and next summer you can work some more, and then you can have it.
Yep.
Deferred gratification. There's nothing wrong with it for learning.
That's absolutely right. We did a show last week on teaching your child to fail well, so we talked about that quite a bit.
If I may also just add, I think one thing that we're touching on here is there's not only the importance and the onus on young people learning, but that we want our adults that are in their lives modeling that they could still be learning themselves.
Yes.
So we want to dispel this idea that you learn everything you can when you're in formal school and then it stops. And I think if they see adults, and so when we talk about summer learning, I like to think about it not only summer learning the importance for young people, but also for the adults too. And that's what you see, right? You see teachers taking time in their summers and going to conferences, because that is when they're going to learn and they're going to improve. And so that we want our parents and our adults and the adult role models to just be modeling that. If they're reading, young people will say, okay, I should be reading too. If they're going out to museums and trips and stuff, and even bring people in their lives to come and talk to young people about what the different jobs that they have. Why do we go visit, take your kid to work day one day a year?
Right.
There are other days in the calendar and over the summer where it would be nice to job shadow and show people what people are doing and have kids understand. So I just brought in this idea of summer learning is only for kids. Summer learning is also for adults too, and when they do it together, it's even more powerful.
And I loved what you said, Aaron. There's so much focus now on standardized testing in schools, and it's something that we have to do. And Julie just stuck her tongue out. But there's things that we're not able to get to during the school year, unfortunately. So summer is a great time to focus more on the arts and music and different things like job exploration, career exploration, and things like that. So that's just something to keep in mind. Very good point. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Okay. So are you guys familiar with bridge books?
I'm not familiar with that term.
Aaron, are you?
Say again?
Are you familiar with bridge books?
I am not.
Okay, well, David is. David, What are bridge books and what are they used for?
Okay, so bridge books are they're books that kind of make the transition from the grade they're coming out of to what they're going into, and they have different types of activities that help them to review what they learned from the previous year. Now, they're national books, so it's not necessarily geared towards a particular state, but just general standards that kids are expected to learn in second grade, fourth grade, and so on. So that they work on the math. I just found the third grade bridge book for our son Jonathan, who just left second grade, and I just pulled it out, and we're gonna hop on it, and just to help to build those skills that it's still pretty fresh in his mind right now. We're only 2 weeks out from school, and it's going to help him just to go into the fall with confidence, knowing that he is ready to go. So it's it's increasing the vocabulary, increasing the level of difficulty with the reading, helping to stop and pause, and if there's a word you don't understand, find the definition of it and look it up. And it's just a great way to help to grow in reading and mathematics and science, social studies. So it's a great opportunity, and they only cost a couple of bucks at a store, maybe $10-15 maybe.
Less than that.
Yeah.
Because like maybe 10.
Yeah, and so they're really cheap, and it's a great transition. Now, there's going to probably need some support there. Just to slap a book in front of a child and say, go at it, that's not going to necessarily work. But it is a very practical way to help kids work through the summer on those core academic skills that we've been talking about as well, in addition to everything else we've been doing as well.
David, I'll just add also, since that's a great resource for your listeners and for everyone, there's a great partner we have, a big investor in this topic and in education called the Wallace Foundation. And I would encourage everyone to go onto their website. They've invested a lot in creating toolkits, focused on helping especially parents over the summer to have different ideas and access different resources. So the Wallace Foundation has created a lot. If they Google the Wallace Foundation, they'll be able to go to their website. And also the RAND Corporation just put out some research also showing the importance of this investment of this time period and what we could be doing. And then to just echo your point about the bridge, not only is it year-to-year bridge building that you want to do, and those books sound terrific, but also especially around transitions of specific schooling. So if you're going from elementary to middle school, that summer there's a lot of anxiety for young people, for kids getting ready. What is middle school? I'm going from the biggest to the smallest, and we all know, a sixth grader could look completely different than an eighth grader, and they're all put in the same building, right? And then similarly, if you're going from middle school into high school, that summer is a make or break time for all of us to be investing in our young people. To say that's the summer when they're nervous, they want to know study skills, things get a little bit more serious, the stakes are higher. And kids are trying to figure out who they are as individuals and figuring out which way do I want to go. And so investing in that summer before ninth grade and saying, hey, this is what it takes to graduate. These are the classes you're going to want to be. These are the skill sets you're going to need. These are the activities you could join. You might want to practice so you could try out all these different kinds of things. That summer, getting them ready, there's a lot of value in us putting in more effort and energy around that time as they get ready. And then the last part is about before college, and I think there's research that calls it the summer melt, where there's so too many kids who are getting into college and at the end of their senior year, and then because no adults are checking in on them over that summer after high school, before college, this is a melt. They're not showing up to enroll freshman year. And then we need to do more for people at these other bridge points in their lives.
Yeah.
Let me just add a couple quick things here. One thing I've noticed with my with working with kids with test prep, especially the juniors, pre-juniors, pre-seniors, is a lot of the skills on the SATs and ACTs are skills they haven't seen since 6th or 7th grade, literally. And so they may have mastered it when they were in that grade level, but if they haven't used it in a while, like proportions and different types of problems like that, probability, some of those things they haven't seen in a long time. I'm going over stuff with them, and they're like, I kind of remember that, but, and so even and this is for parents, if you have a high school student, make sure that they are fresh on those skills, because it will come back again. It's not just done, and then that's it. Then another thing is, just as a challenge, if you are heading into your senior year, that you don't slack off with the courses you take, that you don't take patty cake courses your senior year, which I've seen at times. I'm sorry.
I did that.
Yeah. Because, the senior year is, okay, they think I'm done, I'm ready to wrap it up here. But if you're on a college preparatory curriculum, the purpose of senior year is to get you ready for college. That's the last push to get you ready academically to go into your freshman year. So if you're not taking mathematics in your senior year, well, you know what? You're going to probably take what you took your sophomore year in a remedial course. So these are just
pay for your high school class.
Right, and now you got to pay for it. Now it's a glorified high school course you're paying for in college. These just came to my head as we're talking about other ways, other gaps, test prep gaps, and then that final push to get into college.
If I can add, this is more of the social emotional part that I've met as an elementary principal. I had parents that understood, my child is 5, my child is 7. I need to be deeply involved. I'm going to come to every parent event. I'm going to read with them at night. Then when I moved to middle school, they're like, oh, well, they know they're old enough. They're on their own now. And I've never been a high school administrator, but I know it's even more pronounced there. I used to tell my parents, your children they're only halfway done. You aren't, your role has to go all the way through college with them. It's going to look different when they're 5 than when they're 15 or when they're 20, but you have a role the entire time. And so, their natural inclination, it's a developmentally appropriate thing for them to try to push you away. But I think in terms of helping with those things like you're bridging from one level to the next, or continuing school learning or just life learning throughout their life, they try to push you away. Don't let them. That's my best advice for parents. The more they push away, pull in, find other ways to engage with them, because they are not ready to know. They don't have the
Their
foresight.
brains aren't fully developed
They're
yet.
not. I'm tapping my forehead because their frontal lobes aren't even all the way finished yet. But they don't have the foresight to know that if I slack off my senior year, I'm going to pay for it later. We have to stay involved in that, supporting good, positive decision making a lot longer than many parents realize.
Yeah, that's so good. So let's just take a quick break to just say, if you have any questions or comments, we are not taking calls today, but if you're listening to us on Fishbowl Radio Network, we would love for you to log on to Facebook and go to @Noggin Foundation, that's NOGGIN Foundation, and ask us any question you like. We already have several people listening online, so those that are already watching online, if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in. So as a parent, we know that the school year can be pretty stressful for parents and children. Isn't this a great time for us just to relax? Or my question is, how do we strike a balance between giving them a chance to recharge and relax and also learn?
Well, you're asking I'm like a champion world-class geek here. So for me, learning is fun, but it's fun for me because and that's what we need to try to find. Learning doesn't have to be sitting in a chair, completing rows and rows of math products, or reading a passage and answering questions. In fact, for summer, please, limit that at the very least. But so if we can find a way, again, to make learning real, interesting, engaging, it's sort of camo learning. Keep it camouflage.
That's good.
That's really good. Yeah.
Trick them learning.
Trick them.
Yes.
They won't even know it. They'll think we're just having a great conversation and having some fun.
But all of that is kind of premised on this idea that we're empowering our students to find something that they care about. And like you were saying, help them develop their passions, find their passions, and then they will then pursue it. And so what the difference between having a 5-year-old in your program and a 13-year-old, 5-year-old really has no choice if the parent decides to send them to the program. They're going to be there. But 13-year-old, 14-year-old, now they're big enough to get home on their own or walk away. And like you were saying earlier, that's a precise time when they are looking for some direction, and that's exactly when parents are usually like, all right, he's big enough, she's old enough, I'll leave them alone. But there are other people that can be recruited into this process, and near peer mentors, peer, support matters so much. But kids looking for role models who are usually like 2 steps ahead. So if you're in middle school, a college student is a huge deal. If you're in elementary school, a high school student is a huge deal. But by the way, to graduate high school, you need to get volunteer hours, a lot of which are done over the summer. So there are a lot of high school kids who are looking for projects where they could work with younger people, a lot of college students for their majors. So there's a lot of other resources that parents can find that's beyond themselves, where people where young kids and young people could get entered into programs. So I would look at your also, we were talking about libraries, museums, parks and rec. I would also look to your local college campus. Your local college is a ton of programs. The soccer team's running a program, the music department's running a program for young people. So there's a lot to tap into, and sometimes it's not so expensive. So it's just interesting to think about like all the different opportunities out there and how to keep it going. But the kids vote with their feet, so it has to be engaging. You know, they're not different than school. It's against the law not to go to school. It's not against the law to not go to a summer program. And so the onus is on us to make it creative and get them to feel a sense of ownership and leadership, like they're in charge.
So as a parent, how do I kind of set goals for the summer? How do I know what objectives I really want to meet during the summer? You know, we don't want to make this like we're not homeschooling them over the summer, but how do we kind of determine what it is that we want to teach them during the summer?
I think it varies by your child. So if your child is already walking along through school and everything is going well, I think what you already are doing for your own children with the bridge books and just helping to keep school at the forefront, or not school. I'm going to take that back completely. Not school, but just exploring and engaging and doing some critical thinking. That's a beautiful thing. If your child is more struggling, you may have to be more structured in your approach. But if I don't want to give the impression that anybody should be sitting at their kitchen table, you know, here's how you do this quadratic equation because you didn't learn it in algebra this year. That's really not an expectation that many parents can support at any rate.
Right.
So
I will.
Yeah, you can.
Well.
You'll be ready. I would have to have you teach me, and then
Right,
I can
exactly.
help. But if you want to work on reading, I'm your girl. I think it depends a lot. I think we need to limit the amount of time kids are sitting in front of TV. I think we need to limit the amount of time kids are sitting still. They need to be up and moving around and creating and playing. You all started the year starting the program talking about what you did in the summer. I played a lot with my sisters and our neighbors, and playing, creative play and dramatic. I mean, that's just a great learning experience. Way better than on the phone playing.
Well, and there's a lot of research to back that up for sure, and I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of play and getting kids to be physically active, especially kids who are not maybe star athletes, by the way. And hiking is a form of physical activity, and so is dance and all these other things. But I think you were asking before about metrics. You know, how do you measure your goals around the summer? You know, you could do it. How many books did you read? How much physical activity did you get? But I think a real key to keep in mind about summer, and this is where summer is so uniquely well positioned, is about what projects did you accomplish, and be project based. And so then everything makes sense. Did you learn everything you need to do so you could have built that huge thing in the backyard, or did you do what you need to do so then you were prepared to go and take this trip or go and put on this thing for the elderly or whatever you were trying to do. So I would try and find a project that you could build a lot of the learning around, and that'll build up people's leadership skills and kind of, again, their sense of efficacy, their sense of ownership for themselves about why they're learning what they are in class and how it connects to their own skill sets and their own passions, and finding almost like a community service element to whatever they're doing. You know, you want to play basketball, fine, but like, why don't you organize a basketball game where you raise money for ABC? You know, you want to be a performer, fine, practice singing, and then we're going to go to the Senior Citizen Center and you're going to do something. So you come up with a project that's kind of a culminating, end to all their wonderful efforts.
That's great, and give them the opportunity to take ownership, because I know when we give tasks to our kids, it becomes more difficult. And I think that's an adult thing as well. But when you give them a project and they can take ownership of something, then they really get more into it and want to accomplish it more.
Yeah. So next question is, if my child attends summer school, is that enough? Or should he or she continue learning all summer? So let's just say, unfortunately, they needed to pass the state exam, or maybe they failed a course or two and then you need to take courses, or even if they're just taking some for enrichment and they go to these classes during the day. Should that be it, or what are your thoughts on going beyond that?
Yeah, how long is summer school?
Ours is 7 days.
That's it?
That's all. Well, now I will take that back. It's it varies depending on what summer school you're in and why you're there, but it's really most often a very limited time, and it's also very focused on a specific task.
Right.
And I think the learning we've been talking about today is not necessarily that task.
Right.
And so my answer would just in general be no, that's not enough, because it's really, there's so much more. The experiential learning, the project-based learning, all of those things that aren't happening in summer school at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's also, again, to keep referencing research, well, there's been a lot of data to show that it's the combination of academics and enrichment and experiences where then help people do better academically. So summer school is necessary and important for sure, especially if you're making up classes where you struggled or you need to learn the material. But you don't want to stop there. Just to emphasize what we just heard, is like you want to make sure that there's a connection to the real world and that there's other places and avenues for some young person to find their passion, and that's something. And then the academics make sense. I'm learning math because, hey, I want to be a business person and I need to know it. Or I'm learning English, and by the way, I love to talk to my friends all day, and maybe I'll become a broadcaster. I'm going to be able to write well,
Right.
or I'm interested in lots of questions, right? So it's all about connecting dots for the learning. For sure, summer school is necessary, but it's interesting also to make sure that we're careful not to make it this punishment and a stigmatized, horrible experience that only certain kids who are really failing get required to take summer school, and they don't want to be there, and everyone kind of looks at them and like, why are you here, and all this stuff. And we're trying to say, hey, there could be a better way to create that experience if that does exist. And then what about all the other kids who are not being forced to be there, but we want them to have a good experience? And our model that we see most often that's most successful is this combination of academics in the morning and art, music, enrichment, sports in the afternoon. That's when and for a lengthy period of time, 4 to 6, 8 weeks. You'll see a lot of big results from that, and that'll incorporate everything else we've been discussing.
All right. What online resources can you recommend for families to help? I know we talk about limiting screen time and stuff, but there are some great resources that are available online that are either low cost or free. What are some that you personally recommend that you've seen have been helpful in keeping kids engaged during the summer months?
Well, and there's, besides curriculum and online tools, which we could make sure we make available, there's a lot, whether it's from Khan Academy, but that's online. But that you have all these great partners in all communities, right? We have our YMCA's, our Boys and Girls Clubs. There's a group called Horizons National that are running programs, Breakthrough for Learning. Bell is running programs. So there's all these wonderful partner groups, and so I would recommend people check out those groups and find out what they're offering and what's available, also your local Parks and Rec. But then if you want an actual real curriculum and resources, again, like I mentioned, the Wallace Foundation has a ton. We will be able to also help direct people who want to contact the National Summer Learning Association. We have trained staff, program teams who are really keeping their ear to the ground and have a sense of what's working all over. We give out awards every year to innovative, effective programs, and those programs are going to be listed on our website, but also our staff can direct people to, tell us where you are, and we can try and help you locate the best opportunities for your kids.
I'm just going to second that.
All right. One last quick question is, so let's say I'm a parent and I work 2 or 3 jobs. I'm a single parent. I'm a parent, and both of us work executive jobs. We don't have the time to invest in our children for whatever the reason is. What do you recommend and suggest as far as supporting those parents?
I've already said I just can't overstate the value of reading with, to, in front of, next to your children. 20 minutes. Even most of our busiest people can set aside 20 minutes at least a few days a week. You don't have to even read. Let them see that you're reading. You could be reading what you need to read for work if you need to get that done.
Right.
You can be planning your dinner, so you're planning your menus for the week, so you're reading recipes. But let them see you, let them interact with you about the reading while they're reading, and then take a moment to interact with them about what they've read. Reading is and speaking and listening about what you've read. It's such a powerful learning tool because you don't have to leave your couch and you can go everywhere in the world through a book, and you can learn so much. It doesn't matter what we're reading. I used to tell parents, I don't care if they're reading fiction, nonfiction, newspapers, magazines, cereal boxes, road signs, anything. The interaction that is created with the reading, it's just an invaluable tool for learning.
Absolutely.
Always.
So we are going to have a lot of the resources that we mentioned on our website, schooldayshow.com. We will have some online resources. We'll also have a link to the National Summer Learning Association. Let me ask you, Aaron, for National Summer Learning Week, how do I find out what's happening in my area? Can I put in my zip code somewhere?
Well, we will be making sure that we're finding out all these events that are happening and letting people know. So we will have that information on our website, summerlearning.org. But also that in your local community, again, if people want to reach out, there's usually an state after-school network for every state. So in Texas, it's Tex Post. They would know all the different opportunities and events going on, I would think. And that there are also these other groups that we were talking about, whether it's from the school district or the Parks and Rec and library. They'll know what events they're putting on and letting people plug in and join. And I think just to answer that question previously about what do you do if you're the dad or mom working 2-3 jobs and you have no time, I think the thing that they should take comfort in is that there are free programs out there, or low cost of free programs available, that they should also know that even if they don't have time, there are other caring adults and organizations that are making themselves available to put in the time with their kids. And so we just got to make sure that we connect those resources to our parents, so they know, hey, they might not be around to do it, but they could get their kid into a program where there will be adults to make sure their kids keep learning all summer.
Oh, awesome. That's great. So unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I think that this was a great episode. We gave them a lot of information here. So what we always want to do right now is talk about what's going on with Noggin Educational Coaching and Noggin Educational Foundation. What's going on with Noggin Coaching, Dave?
So as I alluded to earlier in the episode, this is a great opportunity to freshen up on those skills that for test prep. Students that are getting ready to take the SATs or the PSATs in the fall, particularly if you're taking the PSAT 8 or 9 for 8th and 9th graders. They kind of assess where you are right now, or PSAT 10, they have a comparable version for the ACT as well. It's a great time just to start brushing up on those skills that you need to get a stronger foundation so that when you go into the fall, you'll be prepared. And also just reviewing old skills that maybe you missed out on during the school year, you need to touch up on, or getting ahead as well. This is a great opportunity. We have coaches that are ready to work with your child, and we come to you and look at your environment to see how can we enhance learning at home. What are some obstacles that are getting in the way as well? So if you want to find out more, reach out to us. You can email us at info@noggineducation.com.
And with Noggin Educational Foundation, on Monday, we start our summer math and reading program, SPARK. That stands for Summers Producing Academically Ready Kids. It's a 6-week math and reading program, and we need volunteers. So if you're here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, this is a great opportunity for you to work with some students. We have students from K through middle school. And also, if you're a student, it's a great opportunity to help reduce summer learning loss by actually working with kids and helping them read and helping them with their math skills. So if you're interested in that, feel free to email me at info@schooldazedshow.com. So Dave, what's happening next week?
So next week, we will be on our second week of our summer program, Spark. So we'll play the best of school days. This will be the first time we've done that since we started the show. So if you missed our episode with the scholarship lady, you'll want to tune in to find out tips for getting the money you need to pay for college. And this is what you'll learn is, it's not just for juniors and seniors, but even for middle schoolers and early high schoolers as well. So please tune in next week to find out how to get money for college.
And as always, we want to tell you to head to our show, schooldazeshow.com, for more information. And remember, you don't ever have to miss a show. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and really anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. And also, we want to remind you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Noggin Foundation. And lastly, we always want to end our show by saying that we are parenting by grace, David and I. We depend on God to give us the wisdom and strength that we need to raise our kids into flourishing adults. And if you'd like to know more about that, feel free to email us at info@schooldazedshow.com. Have a great week.
School Dazed is sponsored by Noggin Educational Foundation. At Noggin, we provide free educational resources to students from low-income families and support to their parents like the preceding broadcast. School Dazed is made possible by the generosity of listeners just like you. Please consider donating to Noggin at Noggin, Noggin, foundation.org.
Hi, my name is Donna Peck.
All right.